You know, we are used to praising strength. And I think that's notable because the ability to be strong, particularly amidst life's peaks and valleys, is to be appreciated and rewarded. Strength is what enables us to accomplish great things. Strength is what enables us to persevere even when times get rough. Strength is what gives to creativity and takes us from creativity to completion. Strength is a major part of how we live, but I must confess to you today that I feel we don't say enough about meaningful weakness. Necessary weakness. Weakness is often cast into such a negative light that we often try to avoid it, and we tend to pick with those who can't. We spend our efforts trying to minimize its place in our lives, but what if the necessary ingredient for you, what if the difference between where you are right now and where you need to be is not about amassing more strength? What if, in fact, what you needed was to be able to have a moment in your life where you could be weak? My mind goes to the woman, that wealthy, successful wife from Shunem, whose son, that the prophet Elisha prophesied into existence, has now had a sunstroke and has died, and she has saddled up her donkey as her husband has laid the weight of this sick son on her shoulders. She now, being, as many women are, strong to the bone, has saddled a donkey and goes 25 miles to see the prophet. And when she is first greeted, she does what many of us do, and they ask, "Are you all right? And is everything well?" And she says, "Oh yes, it is well, and I am fine, and my family is fine." But then she breaks, and she grabs the prophet by his feet, pulls at his ankles, and she begins to cry out in such a way that it made Elisha say, "This woman is greatly distressed, and the Lord didn't even let me see it." I'm talking today to somebody who knows what it's like to wrestle with private pain, the kind of pain that others don't get to see, that people are not privy to. And much like this woman, many of you know what it's like to simply be strong when people ask you how you're doing. You say, "Oh, it is well, and everything's all right, and I'm faring well." But up underneath that, life is falling apart. And what I love is that God offers no condemnation to this woman for her weakness. In fact, she cries out and she says to the prophet, "I didn't even ask for this child. You prophesied this child. I was content," is what she's saying. I had grown content with the fact that we couldn't have children. I had learned to live without it. Have you ever had something you learned to live without, and then the Lord bless you with it? Something you didn't even have the courage to ask for, but the Lord does it for you. And then life happens, and the same thing, the very thing that God gave you that you didn't have the courage to ask for, is now taken away. And what we see here is a display of weakness. And what I want you to walk away with this week is that weakness is where the work begins. God's work of restoration in our lives begins in weakness, and it ends in grace. I want you to see that her weakness, and perhaps even your weakness before God, is what activates God to move on your behalf. Great faith isn't always what gets the job done. Sometimes it's great human weakness placed at the feet of God. And Elisha, who is the servant of the Lord, responds. The Bible says he goes back with her to her home. And I believe that he typifies what grace does for us. Grace walks with us back on our journeys, that what begins in weakness will end in grace. I'm telling you today, it's okay for you to be weak. It's okay for you to not have the answers. It's okay for you to have seasons in your life where you don't know how you're going to do it. That's grace's job. And if you would cry out the same way that a woman crying out, a child, a baby crying out, ignites the milk in a nursing mother, when you cry out to God in your weakness, you tap into the supply and the resource of God's grace in your life. I don't need to say anything else. It's okay for you to be weak. This is your momentum. What are you going to do with it?